it is, but families must come first. I appreciate the hard work that you and your team accomplished to make this event possible.
Taylor, there's no sound on YouTube yet. Could you
Oh,
hold on just
okay.
a second?
Yes.
Sorry.
I will wait.
You get to start all over again.
I don't
Where's
have any
that
more.
music,
Oh, there
Taylor?
we go.
Play.
You guys can hear me now better. Is that better? I don't have any more jokes, so if I have to fill any more time. Are we good, Devin? Is that better? Yeah. I am a child of. Is that good? For the people on YouTube,
Start all over.
we're thankful for KCEA putting on this event. But you'll notice we're missing a couple people. Mrs. Cabea and Mrs. Horning, all the candidates were made aware of tonight's event. Mrs. Cabea acknowledged that she received the rules, and Mr. Horning said he was going to be here. He sent the following email: "My apologies at this late hour. While I was looking forward to tonight's event, a family situation has arisen which requires my attention and presence. I am sure that many will make more of it than what it is, but families must come first. I appreciate the hard work that you and your team accomplished to make this event possible, and I am sorry I cannot be there. I will make myself available in the near future to answer any questions people may have that I cannot answer tonight. Sincerely, Pat Horning." And then Mrs. Cabea on her official campaign page about an hour ago posted, she didn't reach out to us, but we were made aware of this. She says, the time for debate ended in June when I beat my opponent Andy Gant handily in the GOP primary. Now, through a loophole in Utah's, quote, sore loser law, Gant has filed to run a desperate write-in campaign against me for a second bite at the apple. Meanwhile, I am running unopposed on the ballot and preparing to take a seat on the Kane County Commission on January 3rd, 2023. I will hit the ground running on day one to fight for the citizens of Kane County against federal overreach on our thousands of miles of public land, ensure fire protection for every resident in the county, and provide oversight against backroom deals for big developers and out-of-state investors who only want to make a quick buck on the backs of our taxpayers. And then she also posted a picture that included the election results from the primary election. So that's why they're not here, or that's their, I guess, official statements on why they didn't attend tonight. I think we're still going to have a great event. We're going to follow the rules, how we sent them out to them before, and kind of take this business as usual. To go over a few rules just so everybody is kind of on the same page. We're trying to keep this really professional, so if you could keep any applause or cheering or anything like that to yourselves until after the closing statements, that would be great. We're not looking for any applause or cheering. I kind of covered the question thing, but just so everybody's aware, the questions for the candidates were solicited from county employees prior to the debate and have been screened, selected, and edited for clarity by Kane County Employees Association leadership and the debate moderator. Questions were not provided in advance to the candidates. However, the Kane County Employees Association did provide the candidates with kind of the general themes of the questions. And then attendees may submit questions during the progress of this as they come up. Like I said, if you could get them to either Megan or April there in the back, or bring them up to the table, they'll kind of be wandering around. You can hand them to them. We're not going to be taking any questions from the online feed, so if you're on YouTube and have a question, you'll have to get that in another way. As far as the timing goes for this, we're going to adhere to a pretty strict time schedule. During the questioning period, candidates will be given 1 minute each to answer, with the opportunity for a 30-second rebuttal from each candidate for that same seat. The debate moderator is allowed to ask for follow-up or clarifying questions based on candidate answers and will give an additional 30 seconds for response to each candidate. If a candidate refers to another candidate or another candidate's position or record, then the debate moderator may give the other candidate an additional 15 seconds for rebuttal. We only had to do our coin toss for seat B, since how there's two of them, and Celeste will start first. Is that right? I already forgot. Celeste will start first, and then Camille will get the next question, and then when we get to closing arguments, that will flip so that Camille will go first there. Kind of again, we're trying to keep this really professional, so we don't want any personal attacks or mudslinging. We're not gonna allow for that from the audience or from the candidates. So we'll kind of be pretty strict there. We are going to conduct a straw poll tonight to try to get a feeling for if you were going to vote tonight, how that would go. We have a pretty good turnout tonight, and so that should be pretty good. I'll explain that in more depth later once we get to that point. The night will kind of go as follows. We're just going to jump right into questions here. We have some questions that are kind of general, some questions that are specific. We'll jump right into that, and then before the closing statements, I will get up and explain the straw poll. We'll hand out the ballots, and then we'll start into our closing statements. So again, thanks for being here, and we'll get started.
All right, are you ready?
Ready.
Okay. We're going to start with the general question here. And we'll start with Mr. Gant and then to Ms. Myers and Ms. Johnson. Our first question is, we recognize that there are many things that all of the candidates have in common. What sets you apart from the other candidates that makes you best to serve as Kane County Commissioner? Mr. Gant?
Best, that's hard. I don't want to jump right into why I'm better, but I will speak to my qualities. I'm conservative in my values and morals. I think I'm highly ethical. I have put in many years in Kane County, been here 30 years, proving my ability and desire to serve. I've always had something going on since I moved here. Started mechanicking the first 5 years I was here, and then was a cop for the next 5, and then did the internet for the next 20. So I've always had a project, and I enjoy serving. And those jobs are all stuff that I think you can connect with people, and that's always been something I've really enjoyed doing. 12 years of that was on the stand for church at the same time. So I like being busy. I like being involved, and I think I've made Kanab to stop. Am I done? I think I wasn't even looking. Okay. And I've tried to make Kanab a better place to live. Thank you. Better start watching.
I am Celeste Myers, and I think what sets me apart is that I volunteer my time. I love doing this. I don't get paid for most of the service projects I've done. I do receive a small city council stipend, which I generally donate to community causes. I don't have any conflicts of interest. I'm a small business owner, local family business, and I'm the chair of the Republican Party, so I get to work regularly with the legislature, and I go to every meeting, every county commission meeting and every city council meeting, so I'm very prepared. I understand a large breadth and depth of issues, and I've got 30 more seconds, yay. I come from a place of deep principle. What I care most about is supporting, defending, and obeying the Constitution and carrying out the duties of my office with fidelity. That's the promise I've made on Kanab City Council, and that's the promise I would make on County Commission. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm Camille Johnson, and I think the thing that really sets me apart is my leadership and experience. I've worked for Kane County for 8 years, have over 18,000 hours of experience in county government. I've worked with all the departments, know how the basic operations go, and I could step in and be effective day one. That's a tremendous advantage to be able to step in and help the county continue our efforts without having the tremendous learning curve. And like or hate the Trump administration, it was a pretty soft time for Kane County. His policy supports basically a destination and an economy that's dependent on public lands. And under the current administration, we don't really have the luxury of having the learning curve of learning how to be a commissioner, so I could step in day one and be effective. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll start this question with Ms. Myers. What are 1 or 2 specific changes in county ordinance, policies, or procedures that you would enact as a county commissioner?
Actually, just the opposite. I feel like the county very much needs stability right now with 2 commissioners changing over possibly and other changes like the county clerk auditor moving on. And what I would like to do is just keep the boat steady, keep moving forward. I'm not looking to grow programs right away especially, but I'm not looking to drastically cut them either. So thank you for that question.
Yeah, really the same thing. I think it's just keeping things moving forward in the direction they are. I don't have any problems with the current policies or procedures. I have 8 years experience with them, and I think they're running well. And the Kane County employees work hard, they're dedicated, they're passionate. So really just giving them the tools they need and the support they need to just continue the good efforts they're working on.
Mr. Gant?
Give us a question.
Yes.
I guess several thoughts there. No major changes. There are some smaller issues, things that are definitely facing us now. Growth and zoning, we all know too well the challenges that face us there. So there are certain things that are going to have to end up in policy there, although those are limited as to exactly what you can do. But we definitely need to have those discussions on Airbnb, VRBO, licensing issues, regulation. Boy, that is a handful. And those are tough because there's no right answer exactly how to deal with those challenges. But that's probably one of the biggest in front of us right now. Land use and growth.
Thank you. Okay, another general question, and we'll start with Ms. Johnson. As a county commissioner, you will be required to work with other county elected officials, including the sheriff, clerk auditor, treasurer, recorder, attorney, assessor, and justice court judge. What do you view as your role as county commissioner, and how will you fit into this team of elected officials to best serve Kane County?
Man, sounds like a bunch of trouble, doesn't it? No, I really have a tremendous amount of respect for our current elected officials. And I think really just keeping those relationships solid. It's kind of strange to me to think of the county at a different time. Those elected officials weren't always, they didn't always have good relationships. They weren't always able to work well together. And we're in a really good spot where we have really good elected officials. And so I think really just continuing to support them, make sure that we're following state and federal procedure and law, and I would look forward to working with each of them. I don't know that I would want to enter this realm if I didn't like our current elected officials and feel like they were doing a good job.
Mr. Gant?
Sorry. I'm thinking that they're doing one different than I'm doing. That's kind of why I'm here. I enjoy the job. I've enjoyed the last 4 years. I don't enjoy the campaign part, but other than that, we've got a great staff. I love working with our other community members as well as our county employees. I think we've got a super relationship with the city, and we're reaching out. We've got cool stuff going in the valley now with new EMS and fire coverage that we're working on, and East County, Big Water. We spend a lot of time with Mayor Schmucker and the fire guys out there. I think we got some great stuff going. Probably the single biggest reason that I'm back now is to stand by our county employees. So I think we need to look at the big picture, have their back. They've had my back. And I want to protect that future that I believe could be in jeopardy if we don't pay attention.
Thank you. Ms. Myers?
Again, so in deference to our constitutions and our form of government that we have that has a certain structure, the elected officials are peers of the county commissioners. They're not subordinates of the county commissioners, and I'm very mindful of that. Also, I think it's really great. It could be potentially a wonderful partnership that I do serve on Kanab City Council, which, you know, Kanab is the county seat. It's the only city in Kane County, and the hospital is here in Kanab, the Kanab Center is here in Kanab, the senior center is here in Kanab, the county courthouse is here in Kanab, and I have a great relationship with very many of the departments within the county already. And, you know, I'm just gonna say this, we are gonna get through this together. This is gonna be a little bit of a rocky time, but we're gonna get through this together, working as a team. And I'm excited, so thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to change how I'm doing things a little bit just because I'm blurring the line between seat A and seat B, and I apologize. So we'll keep you two going back and forth, and then give you a chance to answer if that's okay, or vice
That's
versa,
fine.
so we're not blurring
Point at
the
me.
two seats. So, okay, this is a specific question for Ms. Myers. You have expressed a free market approach to zoning private property. The Kane County Planning Commission has recently addressed many controversial projects. They have recommended denial or partial denial of some of them. As a Kane County Commissioner, what process would you use to evaluate the Planning Commission's recommendation and come to your own decision?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. Thank you for bringing that up. Planning, and then I joined Kanab City Council, and I go to many of the county planning meetings and all of the county commission meetings. And I've learned a few things from doing that, and one of them is the city is built for growth. We've got the infrastructure and the expectation that we will be welcoming many more residents into the area and many more commercial endeavors. So that's the city, and that's where I'd been used to making decisions from that standpoint of, okay, we've got the water, we've got the power, we've got the hospital, et cetera, then okay, come on people, come live with us. And with the county though, it's a little bit different. So the general plan for the city has that in mind. And then with the county, they have a different separate general plan and future land use map. And I've learned that the commercial is platted or planned to be along the highways. And that's something that everyone in the unincorporated areas of the county have come to expect. And I would honor that.
Your time's up. Thank you. Ms. Johnson, do you have anything you would like to say?
Yeah, I guess this is probably where Celeste and I differ a little bit. I think it's really of concern to a lot of citizens, probably one of the top three issues that I continue to have brought to my attention is the rate of growth. And I think one of the ways that you can kind of throttle that in a way that we don't overrun our infrastructure or our resources is through the zoning and density. And in my job, I currently make decisions based off data and information, but local leaning. And I would also consider basically our local citizens and our communities in any of those considerations and make sure it benefits our locals first.
Is there a rebuttal in there?
You may have a 30-second rebuttal.
Thank you for bringing that up. So with the city, there's lots of processes and policies in place that guide us when we make land use decisions. It's not arbitrary or capricious. In fact, we would be in trouble legally if it was so. And I understand that all quite well working with our city attorney. And that's all I'll say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Gant, this question is specifically for you. Last year in November, the County Commission placed Proposition 10 on the ballot. This proposition would allow the county the ability to create a public transit district. This proposition failed. How did you feel about Prop 10 and the results of the election?
Well, there's no elephant in the room there. Prop 10, the communication stuff was horrible. Without this is hard because you don't want to make implications. I voted against Prop 10. I believe my wife did too. We didn't support it. At the same time, the idea behind it was not a threatening scenario. It was basically to set up the district, which they could then funnel money into. Was it necessary? Heavens no. I mean, you know, there was really no value to the county in it. It didn't take funds, so in that regard, I wasn't going to panic. But when you try to run up any kind of proposition, any project, transparency has got to be the key. And it wasn't. Commissioner Chamberlain just kind of ran with it, kind of thought he had a plan. He thought it would be generally accepted, but didn't share his views on that, and people never got a chance to learn about it. I'm out of time. Thank you.
And just to explain to the public, we won't have Ms. Myers and Ms. Johnson respond to this as was specifically for the candidates in seat A to discuss their very pointed questions. And then your pointed ones will have you go back and forth. It gets a little confusing because we're missing candidates. So, Ms. Johnson, this question is specifically for you. You are a registered Republican. Both of your opponents went through the process of being selected by their party to have their name on the ballot as a party nominee. You chose to enter the race as a write-in candidate. Why should Republican voters choose you over the Republican nominee? And why should independent or Democrat voters consider voting for you?
Well, thank you. I appreciate the question. I've probably said this many times, so if this is redundant or you've already heard it, I apologize. Basically, I did consider running in January and met with my family, and we felt like after several discussions, it was the right thing, just simply not the right time. And so I thought, well, I've got 4 years before I have to think about this again. And then after the convention went one way and the primaries flipped and went another, I just got sick, that something went wrong in the process, and I didn't feel comfortable with the results. And I knew that a write-in was an option. My grandpa won as a write-in commissioner in the 80s. And so I was thinking, oh my gosh, who can we get to write in? And then it dawned on me, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's me. It's time. So I feel compelled to do this thing. And it is part of the process. I know it's an unconventional approach to being a candidate, but it is part of the process, and it has been utilized by a lot of communities in southern Utah in recent elections. And so I just wanted to basically submit myself as a qualified candidate to really keep things moving forward in Kane County.
Thank you.
Can I rebut that? Since
Oh, I'm sorry. I forget sometimes.
Yeah, so since my opponent just said that she was gut sick about me winning the primary, that means she's gut sick about the majority of your choices to put me in as your candidate for the Republican Party.
And can I rebut that?
You can have a 30-second rebuttal.
Yeah, so there was obviously other voters who voted another way, but you can only vote based on the choices on the ballot. And so I provide another opportunity that wasn't present before, and that's part of the beauty of a write-in candidate.
Thank you. We had specific questions for Ms. Cabella and Mr. Horning, and we're going to go ahead and ask those also and give you the opportunity to give a 1-minute response to that. So in seat A for Ms. Cabella, one of her questions is, she's endorsed by a group called the Kanab Patriots. Many view the tactics of that group as uncivil and out of character with our small rural area. Others view this group as a strong voice for change. What is your opinion of the Kanab Patriots, and how much will they influence you as a county commissioner? Now, obviously, Ms. Cabella is not here to answer that, but Mr. Gant, if you would like to, we'll give you a minute.
Boy, that's a big one. I am going to go with that. I stand for values that I believe are endemic to our area. I'm about protecting what we currently have. I mean, I would love to see Kanab never change. You know, I run on the heritage concept. Although I'm a transplant, I've been here a long time, but I've bought in to what Kanab has to offer. And I would do whatever it took to protect that. My oldest son just recently moved back and brought his grandkids with him. That's the crown jewel for me. if I can make this place a better place to live for my grandkids, which is what I believe has been going on here for 100 years or whatever it's been, I'm here to defend that.
Thank you.
And on the money.
CB, this question is specifically for Mr. Horning. The county has spent years in litigation with the United States and the Southern Utah Wilderness Alliance to secure title to over 1,000 roads on federal land, known as RS 2477 rights-of-way. Additionally, the county has litigated with the BLM over their plans to manage the monument, successfully advocate for President Trump to reduce the size of the monument, and is now suing President Biden over his actions to restore the monument and remove many traditional uses on the land. What is your opinion of the county's past efforts, and how would you vote on these issues as a county commissioner? And as we know, Mr. Horning's not here to give his response. Where am I on you two? Ms. Myers, how about you?
Yeah, thank you. This is vital for our area, with over 90% of our county being federal land. SUA, the Southern Utah Wilderness Association, and their attempts to block the progress that we've made with RS 2477, which is to reclaim our roads that were pre-existing on the monument land. This is all extremely vital for us. We cannot lose the land uses that we have left, and that includes grazing, hiking, OHV use, all kinds of uses. We have to fight for this, and we have to keep fighting for it, even if it takes resources, time. We have to be strategic about it. We have to really know when to use a velvet hand and when to come in strong, when to have a unified force, and when to go in one-on-one and have strategic meetings and discussions. This is everything.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a time in my history when I don't remember hearing RS 2477. I feel like this has been going on for a very, very long time. I know my grandpa was hugely instrumental in talking about the history of the roads and the road use. And basically, every road west of the Mississippi depends on this lawsuit. And Commissioner Gant has made tremendous headway. And he also has got funding to help with the legal battle from the state PLIPCO office, and that's huge. We absolutely have to keep that fight going on. And I also have some public lands relationships that I feel like I could assist Commissioner Gant in that battle. And then, of course, keeping that monument open for access. We're a public lands dependent destination and economy that is absolutely essential for our vitality. Thank you.
Ms. Myers, do you have a rebuttal? Oh. Okay. Just want to make sure we give you the opportunity. All right, this is a general question for all candidates.
I don't get to answer that.
And we'll start with Commissioner Gant, because we haven't started with you on a general one. What is your position on the East Zion Initiative?
I support the East Zion Initiative. It's a little ironic that when I ran 4 years ago, I was generally in opposition to it in the form it was at that point. They had done a great job. Commissioner Clayson put a lot of work into working with the McClaws family and the other folks up there to put it together. But I was still a little hesitant about funding, right? It's always the big thing is the county getting involved in private enterprise, and it's a hot potato and you got to know details. They had done a wonderful job putting together capital stack, financing packages, but I don't think it was fully baked yet to protect the rest of the county taxpayers in case there was some kind of failure or they got in trouble. If it fell back on some, I got to go talk fast. This is a long conversation. If it would have fell back on the rest of the county to pick up the slack or pay a portion of that, I couldn't have gotten behind it. Once we got the local service district concept baked and they were able to completely fund on their own, and the county didn't have to backstop their financing or funding, I think it's a great project. The revenue that it can generate for the county, it's a huge bonus.
Your time's up.
Stay after and we'll talk more if
There
you
you
have
go.
questions.
Ms. Myers?
Yes, I agree that I'm very much in support of the current iteration of the project. It's very carefully planned and set up to protect the county, protect the residents of the county, protect the people who are in the area that are asking for this project. And it's a smart, complicated matrix. I'd love to talk about it more as well.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson.
My turn. I've got my granny glasses on here. I'm trying to read the small print, but Pat Horning said that in his postcard that Camille Johnson supported Mike Noel's luxury golf course project and the $97 million tax giveaway to East Zion Resort developers. I wish Pat was here to explain how that works and what his understanding is, because that is, as I've said before, a crock of crap. And if you get rid of the layers of the CRA, the RDA, the TIF, it gets a little complicated. But basically, there's a whole study that was done by the Kim C. Gardner Policy Institute that I think everyone could get a hold of. And this shows basically the huge amount of economic impact this would have in our area. Not only are we not giving away millions of dollars, we would receive millions of dollars that are of tremendous benefit for Kane County. So I absolutely support the East Zion initiative the way it is now.
Thank you. Mr. Gant, do you have any rebuttal on any of that?
No, unless you're going to give me more time.
Ms. Myers, any rebuttal?
No.
Okay, thank you. Okay, question, we'll start with Ms. Myers. This is a general question for all of you. Over the last several years, we've seen a large increase in residential properties turning into vacation rentals, creating a shortage of long-term housing. What, if anything, should Kane County do to regulate vacation rentals?
I agree that vacation rentals can be really annoying, intrusive, and have impacts on the neighbors. And in Kanab, we've done certain things to mitigate those impacts. For example, if you do not live in the area, you must have a licensed property management that's within an hour of the property. You must have a business license. Of course, you must remit taxes, et cetera. So that's been helpful. What was the second part of the question?
It's what, if anything, should be done to regulate?
I do want to point out that workforce housing and all kinds of housing have been in shortage in Kanab long before the vacation rental craze. It's just a reality of our more people wanting to live here than we have housing available. I'm not sure I'm willing to completely scapegoat vacation rentals, but I am excited about the fact that vacation rentals can be vacation rentals 1 year, a long-term rental another year, or someone's primary owner residence another year. It has flexibility and we can respond to the market.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson?
Yeah, may I? I kind of live in the space of data and information. I like to make data-driven decisions that are also local leaning. And so I have this information at my fingertips. There's about 500 vacation rentals in Kanab City. Between my data source and the clerk's office, there's about 1,500 total in Kane County. They have increased tremendously, especially in the last couple of years. I've been talking to the State League of Cities and Towns to see what can be done, what's legal that you can do. And there's a few things that I've seen that they've been doing that I thought might be up for consideration, and that's basically what's your comfort level with saturation for the overall housing? And when you determine that percentage, then you issue business licenses according to that, and then it grows with the market. So if your comfort level is 10%, then as the housing grows, then that increases the number of business licenses available. Another layer would basically be, okay, we allow them on main roads because they've talked about commercial access for commercial properties. And then another layer would be potentially, if it's owner on site, you could basically be anywhere because you're accountable to your neighbors in your community. So those are just things for consideration,
Time's
but
up.
I have the data.
Would you like to rebuttal?
Well, I wasn't called out.
No, I'm offering you a rebuttal if you would like.
Thank you. I will just say one further thought to that. I agree that vacation rentals, like all businesses, need to have some level of regulation and standardization to mitigate impacts and harms to others. I also will say that this is a very important revenue source for our area. There are hundreds of local families that depend on revenue from vacation rentals. I'm not sure I'm comfortable stamping down on that too much. And as I mentioned earlier, it provides some flexibility in our market so that we can diversify within the tourism industry and within our other industries as well. So thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome to a 30-second rebuttal.
Yeah, I would just like to say again in the data, so of the business licenses in Kanab City, half of those are owned by locals in Kane County. And then in the county, where really commissioners deal, 90% are owned by people outside of the area and only 10% are owner occupied. So there's not as many families living local that depend on that income. That's opportunity for outsiders, and that money's being exported. And so that's just something that needs to be considered.
Thank you. Mr. Gant, we'll give you the opportunity to answer that same question.
Sure. Yeah, it's a challenge, and I wish we had a clear path or an answer that, didn't have unintended consequences or repercussions. It does generate a lot of revenue. There are a lot of families that it helps, it's their income. I love the model. If they've got a small Airbnb on their property and they live there, that's magic and it works, right? But there are limits. I honestly, we're open to ideas. I would support some kind of regulation on it. I just don't know what that would look like. It's a hard one. We can't just kill it because people own these lots and maybe they want to do something with it. I honestly, I'm looking for answers on that one.
Thank you.
Kind of a poor answer, but that's tough.
All right.
Well, and can I just add to that? Really, it's got to be driven by the people. We're a representative form of government, so really you've got to basically keep an ear to the ground of what the people want. So
Thank
keeping
you.
that in mind, and I like his answer because we do consider what the voter wants.
Thank you.
Can I add one thing? I hope the market might correct itself at some point. I keep thinking we're going to kind of hit saturation and it'll slow down. Let's hope capitalism works and eventually this thing kind of levels out.
All right, you two. I like your comments, but you're making me lose control here.
Sorry.
No, you can't comment unless we offer it to you. That's your warning. We're good.
That's my warning.
All right. But good comments,
Does
and
that
we
mean that
appreciate
we're done
knowing.
if we violate that?
Yeah.
Oh, can we be? All right. One more general question, and then we'll go to some more specific ones. Camille, we'll start with you. How would you describe a proper relationship between a county commissioner and a county employee?
Well, I guess having been a department head, the commissioners always go through me as a department head first before going to my employee, but sometimes it just works better to go directly to the employee. So, for example, here at the Kanab Center, Brent's my supervising commissioner. He usually checks with me first, and then I'll say, yeah, that's great, just talk to Tori directly just to eliminate the confusion. But really, I think just being a support and helping them do their job.
Thank you. Ms. Myers?
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I would add to it that commissioners get certain assignments, so generally over 20 assignments per commissioner. And then of those, what I want to avoid is this idea that I think I own the county, I'm the boss of the whole county, and now the queen of Kane County. And so I would want to be mindful, in addition to what was already said, of really only trying to interface with the departments to which I'm assigned.
Thank you. Do you have anything to add, Ms. Johnson?
No, I think maybe just to her point, I also agree, just there are assignments, and so working with the commissioner who's over that department so you're not overstepping and stepping on their toes. You got to keep basically good relationships with everyone in the county and respect the lane that we're in, but yeah, work together.
Thank you. Anything to add, Ms. Myers? Mr. Gant, would you like to answer that question?
Can you rephrase it again? Employees and...
How do you describe a proper relationship between a county commissioner and county employees?
Yeah. So the commissioner really has to tread lightly. You've got to work with your department heads and other elected officials. I'm pretty firm in the belief that if you go directly to individual employees or interrupt that kind of chain of reporting, authority is compromised and communication's going to be compromised. So ultimately, that's going to probably create more headaches for everyone if you're trying to do one-on-one with individual employees when there's somebody above them that you should be talking to.
Thank you. Okay, we have some questions from the audience. some of them don't apply to the debate tonight, and so if they do not apply to the debate, we're not going to ask them. And some are very directed questions. So, Mr. Gant, we have one directed to you. Why are you running after losing in the primary?
Okay, good question. And a long story that I can't do in, how long do I have? 1 minute total? Okay, so the system, the Republican caucus is set up so that we have a delegate vote. And we, up until 4 years ago, we put a lot of faith in that delegate system. And I support that process, although there are multiple paths to an election that are all legal and all legitimate. I got 82% of that caucus vote, and maybe that led to a little complacency. There was a pretty interesting campaign ran in the primary after that point. But these paths are legitimate. 4 years ago, they changed the law to this new, to a write-in option that is legal as well. And we need to recognize that those are all legitimate paths to the election.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Myers, this one is specifically for you. You mentioned you are the Republican chair. Is that a conflict of interest with running for commissioner?
Yes, it certainly could be, and I questioned that and asked the rest of the executive committee before announcing my candidacy and got their blessing and their support. In fact, one of our executive committee members nominated me at convention, our county convention. I have been very, very careful to separate those responsibilities and to not allow myself to benefit from my position in this candidacy. I have another, I think, 6 months of being the Republican Party chair. That will have been 2 years at that point. Thank you. And so, in other words, the overlap will be short of if I become commissioner, there will be a few months where I will be both commissioner and Republican Party chair. And in case people don't know, there are many members of our County Central Committee Republican Party that are hold county elected positions. So thank you for that question.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, why didn't you run in the primary? You've kind of answered that, but I'm going to let you address that again.
Yeah, again, I considered it. You know, this isn't an easy move for me. I hope people realize this. I have worked 8 years in tourism, building a department that has taken a ton of work, and we've increased revenues 273% in that time, have created 200 new jobs. But I realize after things flipped that basically I do have the experience, the expertise, and to me it's worth taking the hit in income, because it's a reduction in pay, to apply my experience in a way that would benefit Kane County in a broader way.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to ask some more pointed questions for you. Mr. Gant, one of the media's roles is to report objectively and fairly on the government. After the primary election and prior to filling as a write-in, you became part owner in the Southern Utah News. What, if anything, will you do to ensure that the Southern Utah News remains independent from your role as county commissioner?
Yes, I worked with the Browns. They were looking for a way to get a little more free time on their hands, and Neil and Megan are awesome. They approached me about helping out, and it turned into more than I thought. So we're kind of running it. My youngest son went to school. He got his degree in journalism, and it was kind of I never thought I would be involved in the news business. But I'm not involved with that. And I made that deal with Neil and Brooke when we first talked about it over a year ago, that I just don't have any interest, really, technically, honestly, in getting involved. I got my hands plenty full. And I give Brooke the publisher position. She has full control of the paper. Ty is the editor. So between the two of them, they make all those decisions on their own. I don't see what goes in. I wouldn't care anyway. I mean, it's their thing to do. So I don't have any influence on what they run, what they do, or how they edit their stories.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, this is specific for you. You have served for many years as the Kane County Office of Tourism Director. You claim partial responsibility for some of the success Kane County has enjoyed due to increases in tourism during your tenure. Tourism also has its negative effects on our communities. How do you intend to address the negative impacts of tourism while still allowing the county to benefit from tourism?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and believe me, I live in that space of knowing it's a love-hate relationship. My daughter just moved back from Oregon with her kids, and we pulled up to turn left out of the ranchos, and my granddaughter, who's 5, was like, "Oh, traffic jam." It kind of made me chuckle. It was really cute, but we do feel that, and I think part of the uncomfortableness that we feel is in part because of the vacation rentals. The number has increased so much, and we're feeling tourism in a much more intimate way than we ever have. Traditionally, people stay, the transients stay in your hotels on the main road, and you don't see them across the street or next door to you. And so I think partly addressing the vacation rental in a way that we're all a little bit more comfortable with will help. And then some of the things that people don't realize is how strategic we've been. We've actually led the charge on the Red Emerald Initiative, where you're going after a higher spending visitor who stays longer. And so we've been trying to mitigate that. We don't just go after volume visitors. We've been going after quality visitors and working to disperse them seasonally and geographically.
Thank you. Ms. Myers, would you like to comment?
No, thank you.
Okay. I have a question specifically for you. TRT taxes, collected mainly from hotel room stays, is governed by state law, requiring a minimum of 40% of TRT revenue to be spent on the promotion of tourism. The remaining 53% can be spent on projects. Earlier in this election, you discussed changing the way that TRT taxed revenue is spent in the county. Can you explain how you would change TRT distribution in the county?
So I wouldn't be making any decisions unilaterally, but I would like to explore a certain idea. And the idea that I wanted to explore was taking a portion of the TRT funds that could be distributed to local areas, and instead of the county commission having final say over how much money goes where of that particular fund, that there just be a slice that goes back to each region based on how much that region contributes to the TRT. In other words, the areas that contribute the most, in theory, would be impacted the most. Like Amangiri produces 40% of the TRT tax, is my general understanding. And so the East County might get 40% of that portion to decide how they spend it. And that way they have a little bit more ownership, a little less resentment of feeling like the county has too much control over, well, how come this other community got this, but we didn't? And that way, you know, there does need to be some parameters on, I have to stop. That's my idea.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, would you like to rebuttal?
Yeah, I don't know if Celeste realizes there's already a 1% municipal tax, and so they get 1% TRT municipal tax so that they can reinvest that back into their area, and that doesn't have requirements by statute that requires you to spend it a certain way. It can go into your general fund. But with that 53%, that can be spent already in different communities. It doesn't have to be spent in Kanab, but it all has to basically relate back to tourism, so you're not gouging the golden goose. They want you to keep the economy going. And so it just has to be justified. And so it just needs to be invested in a way that it's putting heads back in beds. And if you don't have adequate lodging available in the community to justify, say, putting a rec center in Bigwater, that might not make sense, because if you have tournaments, there wouldn't be enough places for them to actually stay. But investing that in a way that either builds a project for the community or actually mitigates the impacts of tourism, which we're lucky that we get to do that in a 4 through 6 class county. So there's already quite a bit of flexibility in how we can govern that.
Thank you. Would you like a rebuttal?
Yes, please. I have spent quite a bit of time researching this, and so I do understand it. And the 53% can be spent on certain areas that are not growing tourism. Again, it's mitigating tourism. And I'm suggesting that it's an idea to explore, that each area that's impacted, based on the percent of the tax that they contribute, then has a little more agency to decide, not we, the county, we, the residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Any rebuttal?
The mitigation piece actually comes out of projects, so just for clarification.
Thank you. All right, I have a general question for all of you. Let's go to Mr. Gant first. Do you have confidence in our local elections, and will you accept the results if you were to lose?
Yeah, yes, I would. That.
It's a good question.
Yep, I know, I hear you. Yeah, Carla would, yeah, I better stop. I'd be in trouble. No, I will add to that if I've got my time,
You've
right?
got time.
You know, that really is a big debate in the state with mail-in votes and personal voting, and you know, there's legislation again this year for some that want to make it all in-person voting, and maybe there's some argument for that, but come watch Carla's system and our clerks, and I mean, it's solid. We've been doing it for a long time here, and I might get attacked a little from this on some of the far right, but it is phenomenal. Have your missionary sign a ballot, or mom do it, and watch Carla find that signature. Every one of those suckers is checked, and I can't support the legislation that attacks the clerks, because basically they're saying they're not doing their job.
Thank you.
I will be fighting against that again this year when it comes up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Celeste will ask you the same question.
So it's my understanding that Carla will be a step removed from this election, and that Heather will be really the one doing the ins and outs, and the county clerk auditor's office, more than Carla, will be making sure. And they've got lots of steps in place to ensure that the person on the ballot is the person that casts the vote, and that only one ballot is cast per person, and that they're legitimate residents, et cetera. So I feel fairly educated on this. I will say that some people have expressed to me, aren't you worried with the county clerk auditor being the aunt of the write-in on that seat that you're going for, seat B? And I have decided that I'm going to trust in that system. So Utah allows the county clerk auditor's office to determine intent on a write-in. So if it's determined that by the county clerk's office that they accept that write-in vote, then that's counted as a write-in vote. So,
Thank you. Ms. Johnson.
I think the answer for me is just a simple yes. Absolutely, I'll accept the results, whatever happens.
Great. Thank you. All right, this is a general question. We'll start with seat B, and we'll start with Ms. Johnson. What value does public land access have to Kane County, and what will you do to support access to public lands?
Oh boy, we are a public lands dependent economy and a public lands dependent destination. We have, at 6.7% is private land, and so you can imagine how much public land there is that impacts us. So that's everything to us. Not only is it our economy, it's also our heritage. So to me, that is where I feel probably the most passion of continuing that fight, and that's just kind of in my generational blood. We have to keep access to that for grazing, for recreation. You look at how many guides and outfitters have started businesses to guide out on the monument, and how many people that employs. And then also the ranching is so critical for our economy and our heritage. So there's no greater battle to me than keeping the public lands access.
Thank you. Ms. Myers.
yes, I agree, and I already have started this battle years ago. I've been working with our legislatures in the area, with our fellow county commissioners in neighboring counties, with our current county commissioners here in Kane County, with the lands department here within the county. and with private organizations such as the Blue Ribbon Coalition. I'm very close with Ben Burr and Simone Griffin with the Blue Ribbon Coalition. This is vital, and I'm very well positioned to be able to actually have advocacy and leverage in this area, which we must keep fighting together as a team, not just one person trying to be the star. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, anything to?
No, I'd just say, already I've worked with the public lands on many fronts. As a tourism destination that's dependent, we've worked with them on the wave lottery. We took that over during the pandemic. We did a great job running that, and we worked with them on the changes there. And then I'm very familiar with the superintendent of Zion National Park. I've been involved in the East Zion meetings for 6 years now, have a great relationship with them. And then for the North Rim, when I first became tourism director, I was like, we got to get that season extended so it's open year round. And somebody told me that would never happen, and that was basically the fuel for me to begin that battle. And so we've made tremendous progress with the North Rim, and they got fully funded for the projects that need to be done to basically
And I
make
need
that
to cut you
accessible
off. Sorry.
year round. Yep, thank you.
Ms. Myers, anything to add?
Well, I guess I'll mention that I work quite well with Phil Lyman, and he's worked to fight some of the Environmental Endangered Species Act overreach that's currently threatening us, with them being able to expand experimental ranges of endangered or threatened species willy-nilly, basically, without any kind of review. And that's something that the City Council of Kanab and the county commissioners have worked on together. I love working together as a team with others, and I think we're most effective when we work together. So thank you. Thank
you. Mr. Gant, we'd like to offer you the opportunity to answer that question.
Thank you. Yeah, it's become a passion of mine. I kind of ran on lands and roads issues a little bit when I first campaigned. We've had I think we're the fourth commission probably that's been heavily involved, and Kane County, if you Google Kane County lands, or roads, you'll see that we kind of set the standard for the nation in some ways for protecting those. I fight for it day in and day out, and it's the kind of thing that you got to do more than just give it lip service. I mean, it's optional, so to speak. There's a lot of commission responsibilities that you either live by or maybe get kind of swept away. I live kind of for this fight. I spent my record Zoom today was 8 hours on the Monument Advisory Committee with people that I disagree with in every possible way, but we had a long dialogue and we stuck it out. We got some stuff done. The fight is just beginning. I could go on for this all night if anybody would like to talk later. We've got a lot on our plate right now, and I need to stick it out a little longer.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to start this one with Ms. Myers. What is your opinion of using county TRT funds to build a recreation center in Kanab City?
I think that has merit. I've talked about this quite a bit online. The reason I think it has merit is because it's something that we don't already have. It allows us to extend our tourism season and our use of our outdoors in our areas, because people can use the indoor facilities when the weather's bad or when it's too hot or when it's a storm outside. And the other reason I support it is because it's something that would benefit both the locals and families, as well as visitors and tourists, and it would be good for seniors as well as youth. So.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson?
Yeah, I agree there. I think it's a perfect example of appropriate use of TRT, provided that it doesn't overextend your bonding ability and you can stay within your means. But it really gives us the opportunity to host tournaments year-round and then also benefit the local community. So to me, that's what we've always tried to do in tourism, is keep the tourism economy going while benefiting the locals here and their quality of life.
Thank you. Mr. Gant? Would you like to? Okay.
Just a quick thing. On Kanab City Council, We have voted unanimously to explore this issue. We have presented a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, to the county, and we're waiting for a response now, and we're looking forward to working on the county with this. And if I move over to county commission, then I'll look forward to working from the other side of things.
Ms. Johnson, did you want to add anything?
Nope.
Mr. Gant?
Yeah, I support it. I think it's a great use of the funds. TRT, Celeste alluded to earlier, we've got to have some type of distribution or through the county that's fair, right? We have been very cautious because TRT can disappear as quickly as it comes, right? It's totally based on tourism. So some counties in the state have used TRT to fund their base budget items and then had economic issues. In the northeastern part of the state, Uinta and some of those counties that had trouble with their economy when the energy markets changed, and they lost departments through that period. The entire departments in some cases were funded by TRT. So we're super careful to not write any TRT into our base budget. And as long as we do that and stay well within our ability to bond and don't spend it too crazy, it's perfect for that kind of project. And I support it going to primarily capital, brick and mortar stuff that benefits people here.
Thank you. All right, this is a question from the audience specific to Commission Seat B. So we'll start with Ms. Johnson. What are the things that you are opposed on? Why should we vote for you?
What are the things I'm opposed on?
I'm wondering if they mean like, how do you differ? Maybe are there things that you don't agree on? I'm just reading it from the audience, so interpret it how you would like.
So maybe the things we differ on.
That's
and
what I'm
I
thinking.
think probably, I think with the growth, I know Celeste is definitely more free market than I am. I tend to be more mindful of locals and keeping our community character intact as we grow and growing with our locals in mind. And so I'm not afraid to say no. I don't feel like we need to, I'm going to quote Kevin McClaws here, whore ourselves out for big developers. I want people to make money. I want business to come here, but I want to basically run it through the filter of how it benefits locals. Is it in line with our character? Does it provide jobs? Does it provide housing? Does it provide necessary services? And so I really want to be mindful of those things as we grow. And then I think really just experience and leadership, that I would be able to step in knowing county operations and really have kind of a seamless transition.
Thank you. Ms. Myers?
Can you please read that again for me?
It's open for interpretation.
It is. What are the things that you are opposed on? And we kind of took it to mean, where do you differ? And why should we vote for you?
So, looking at all the three candidates that are going for seat B, I'm the Republican nominee for seat B, and then there's a Democratic nominee, well, not nominee, but candidate, and then a write-in candidate for seat B as well. When I look at competition, it really was expecting to go against Pat Horning, the Democrat, and so I looked at the numbers pretty carefully. We have 66% Republican, registered Republican voters in the county. Of those, about 20% of those are registered Republican but vote left. In past county elections, the Democrat candidate has received at least 700 votes, and that would likely be more this time. And unaffiliated voters tend to vote left. So it would have been approximately a 50-50 split without a third candidate. And so now that there's a third candidate, there is a danger that with a three-way split,
Your time's up.
okay,
Thank you.
that the Democrat has a chance.
Thank you. Do you have a rebuttal?
Yeah, I had an independent public or political analyst look at our numbers historically, and he said basically there's a 99% chance that it's you or Celeste, so the split the vote argument isn't really applicable.
Sorry, we're discussing time limits.
No worries. Looks a little
Did you-
confusing down there.
It does. Did you have anything you wanted to add, Celeste?
Oh, yes, I would say that whoever this political analyst is, I also have access to the stats and have drilled down pretty deep on it. All of the numbers that I gave you were accurate, true, and verifiable.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Gant, we have a direct question for you.
Okay.
You have or have had multiple business interests in the county. How do these projects affect your ability to serve as a county commissioner? And what will you do to ensure that your decisions are not influenced by these potential conflicts of interest?
Okay, that's got SRS all over it. So I was involved in Southern Red Sands. We were looking at the frac sand mine up at Red Knoll. I was not an investor specifically. I was general manager of operations, so I was tasked with finding out if the project was feasible, finding the product, the material, did it meet the demands of the oil industry, and was it mineable, was it profitable, and I spent 2 years working on that project, day in and day out, and but it was a private project. It wasn't a community project. It wasn't a public project. It wasn't publicly funded. It wasn't a county project, and it wasn't on county land. So it involved SITLA, State Institutional Trust Lands, and this private investor that wanted to invest in this project. So you think right away, is there a conflict of interest? I'm out of time. Not direct, and there was not. It didn't have any connection to the county whatsoever. So that's the only one I can get in, I guess. I'll stop there.
Thank you.
After questions.
Ms. Myers, a direct question for you from the audience. You came here to work with Best Friends. You are also vegan. I'm not verifying that information. That's from the audience. Do you feel you can offer input on grazing issues?
Yes. So I'm a freedom person, and I believe that people should be able to produce their own food. They should be able to hunt. They should be able to graze animals. They should be able to keep livestock. They should be able to log. They should be able to mine. My strange personal eating habits have nothing to do with my ability to defend the rights of others. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any response? Okay, I have a direct question for you, Ms. Johnson. Outside of tourism, what do you see as the greatest challenge facing Kane County, and what makes you the best candidate to take on that challenge?
Well, like I've mentioned, I think really the growth, and especially with the vacation rentals, that's hugely impacting our housing supply and then also impacting our workforce. And I swim in data. I make decisions based off data and information, and I have access to that data and have already strategically shaped the way we do tourism based on that. But I can take that information and that institutional knowledge and apply it to a greater level for Kane County.
Thank you. Ms. Myers, do you have a response? Okay. We're over here figuring out where we go next. Give us a minute. Okay, Mr. Gant, we'll start with you. Seat B will have you answer this also. Law enforcement has been under attack in many portions of our nation. What are your personal thoughts about law enforcement and their authority, and how will you work to support law enforcement officers in the county?
Thank you. That's a great question. And I'm going to follow up the last one for 1 second by saying I've always been open about any of my business dealings. I would recuse myself if there's any vote that had any conflict. And I've never tried to keep any of that private or secret or whatever. Just ask me, I'll tell you what I'm doing, sometimes too often. I love our sheriff. He's my first and best friend in Kane County. We went to the academy, police academy, roughly the same time. He started just before I did. Law enforcement they're phenomenal, and the stuff that they're taking throughout the country it's wicked, it's evil, and it's terrible. The morale for these guys is down. Thank goodness our local department doesn't feel that much because they have great support. And I believe that the issues, in these blue cities and liberal communities, they reap what they sow. If they don't get behind law enforcement, that's what it's going to turn into. And we live in one of the safest places in the country. We leave our doors unlocked. I never lock my car. I don't lock the house. And we owe that to our wonderful men and women who serve in law enforcement.
Thank you. Ms. Myers?
Yeah, thank you. I think it's very important that they are fully funded, and I believe it's also important to advocate for our law enforcement with the legislature. The legislature has tremendous amount of control over how our departments are funded in that area. I really think it's wonderful that the county has the county jail here, and that basically funds for itself and is a moneymaker on top of that. I don't know if you know, but the Kanab City Council, including myself, have unanimously voted to move toward a police building. Our city police don't have a building right now. We'd like to change that. And also, I get a small stipend on Kanab City Council. I donated a year of that to our local police force, and I would carry over that dedication to our law enforcement. Not that I'm promising to give my entire county commission salary, but I'm just saying that loyalty and appreciation will carry over.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson?
Yeah, I'm a little bit biased. My brother is a sheriff's deputy, but I think we have the greatest law enforcement in Kane County, not just our Kane County guys, but city guys. They're so great. They don't have quotas, they don't harass people, and honestly, in the tourism space, we couldn't do it without them. Our search and rescue being volunteer, they do a tremendous job, and I don't like that we have to use search and rescue, but sometimes visitors are just unprepared for the wilderness that we have. But I say back the blue. We've got great guys, and let's keep that national negative sentiment out of our county. So I fully support them. And we've used TRT in the proper purposes for mitigation for law enforcement and search and rescue already.
Thank you. Ms. Myers, do you have any additional comment?
Yeah, our sheriff's department does so much for us that's not seen, not well funded, not appreciated. For example, the search and rescue, and really out there on public lands, jurisdiction over enforcement in those areas. We have a huge county, lots to do, and shout out.
Anything to add, Ms. Johnson? Okay. Another general question. I'm going to start with Ms. Johnson. Water is a big concern to the residents in the area. What is a county commissioner's role in addressing water issues? And what specific action would you take as a county commissioner to protect water and water resources?
You know, I just had a conversation with Lamont Smith recently, and I respect him so much. And he said something that just resonated with me. He doesn't claim to be a genius, but he was genius in that he surrounded himself with good people who were experts in their field. And I think really just keeping an ear to the ground and relying on the experts to trust that we're in good shape. And I've talked to the Water Conservancy District, the cities. We're in great shape. We are not St. George. We're not Washington County. And it drives me crazy that people try to act like we are. We're the only reservoir in the state of Utah that filled 100% last year. We're in better shape than any other county in this state. And I just think continuing to keep your ear to the ground and know what's going on. And I will trust them in their space and advocate for continued reasonable use. And one other thing, too, is basically people don't understand the use it or lose it. If you don't use your rights, you can lose them. And so we need viable projects that make good use of our water so we don't lose them. And then also working at the legislative level to change that so conservation is encouraged.
Thank you. Ms. Myers?
Yeah, thanks a lot for that question. It is something that's concerning to people, especially because on the surface we look like such a desert, but underneath we're rich in water. And the Kane County Water Conservancy District is over the water. They handle water concerns, infrastructure, payment, et cetera. The county commission has extremely limited role of simply appointing members. But how do we know we have enough water? How do we know that our aquifer was 100% full? There is constantly data being collected on these on our aquifers from the wells. We have smart wells, which monitor and transmit information about how much water, the drawdown rate, the recharge rate. We are sitting pretty.
Mr. Gant?
Okay. Yeah, it's not as dire as a lot of people like to make it sound. And we need to differentiate as well between culinary and irrigation. You know, they're two very distinct systems. And the culinary sources that we have off Cedar Mountain, I'm very familiar with. Spent a couple years learning a lot about them. Spent a lot of money studying water. And we are in good shape. The city wells are in good shape. We're only using three of the 5 that we have, I think, currently. So culinary is not threatened at this point. And we've had a water conservancy district that was super involved in the legislature. You know, Mike has done it for years, 20-some years now. He does a good job. He's done a great job of storage. They've got modern equipment for their pumps, and that irrigation water is below our culinary stuff. So what they use for alfalfa and farming here does not affect levels in our city wells. That's all downstream, well
I've got to
designed.
cut you off.
I'm out of time. Talk to me later if you want to talk water.
Can I answer that?
I love that answer. You may respond, and I'll offer the other 2 time to respond also.
Great. In addition to that, there's also surface water versus groundwater. So spring and underground water, very different situations. They have a relationship with each other, but in general, irrigation water comes from surface water, and culinary house use water comes from groundwater, which is a very stable source.
Ms. Johnson?
Yeah, I guess, you know, as far as development, we have lots of water, but sometimes we don't have the access to that magic sprinkler that sprinkles the water where we need it, when we need it. Coming from that ranching family, I know that it's almost built in to pray for water. So I know that's been a concern with grazing. Sometimes we need water that isn't in our aquifers or in our wells.
Thank you. Mr. Gant, did you want to respond?
No, good job.
Okay, thank you.
Keep working on it, pay attention.
All right. This is a general question for everyone. I'm going to start with Ms. Myers. What are the differences between county government and city government, and what role do county officials play in regards to cities and towns within the county?
Okay, so the county is a political subdivision. The city is a municipality. So all of the towns and cities in Kane County are municipalities. And so they have different roles in that way. So a county should not have as much infrastructure, as many services as cities and towns. And the county, the unincorporated area of the county, is governed by the county commission and the other elected officials. The cities are not governed by the county commission, so they're governed by their own governments, mayors and city councils or town councils.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson?
Yeah, maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but basically the cities work within their municipal boundaries and the county handles the unincorporated areas.
Thank you. Mr. Gant?
The differences was the question?
The differences between the 2 governments and the role that the county plays in regards to cities and towns.
Right. Well, if we can take Celeste up on her offer to have all the growth be in the city limits, I would do that. It would make life much simpler. Very similar in a lot of ways, but yeah, they've got a lot of municipal services they have to provide. So their list is a lot longer than ours from a legislative point of view. But we've got some very defined responsibilities that the sheriff has to take care of, that our attorneys have to take care of, that, you know, the commission has quite a few roles to play as the state, you know, sets forth the rules. So recorders, you know, we've got a lot of those extra responsibilities, similar but different.
Thank you. I'm figuring out where I am here. All right, we have one last question for you. This comes from the audience. We'll start with Mr. Gant. What personal qualities would you bring to the commission to help it achieve harmonious cooperation with city, state, and federal interests and programs?
I am going to claim that to be in my wheelhouse. I enjoy working with a diverse group. You know, I've been criticized by my opponent for pictures with Mitt Romney and Governor Cox, and I just can't imagine that would be a detriment. If they have something to offer or that benefits the county, that we need services or help or funding, I'll cross the aisle. I'll work with anyone. Like I said, spent 8 hours today on the phone or on Zoom with our monument committee, and it's as diverse as it gets. But I'll sit there and participate. If I think I can benefit the county with constructive dialogue, and I don't care. I like to work with people, and I think my record would probably show that.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson?
Yeah, well, you read the question again.
What personal qualities would you bring to the commission to help it achieve harmonious cooperation with city, state, and federal interests and programs?
Yeah, relationships are everything to me. My personal motto is treat everyone with respect, and I think you can learn a lot about a character or the candidate's character by visiting with those who work closest with them. I have a wonderful department who I work really well with. I love working with them. They're my work family, and I love working with the people in Kane County. And I have wonderful relationships with surrounding counties, rural counties throughout the state, and the state office. And so I've been able to achieve a lot of things. I'm a very results-oriented person, not a glory-oriented person. And so this is a very uncomfortable position for me to be in. I'm great at marketing destinations, but it's so uncomfortable to market myself. But I can take those relationships and that ability to work with people and put that to best use for the county.
Thank you. Ms. Myers?
So I'm very consistent. I'm very steadfast. I, again, show up to everything. I work well with others, and in fact, I enjoy others. So the city has gone through some changes lately. We have a new city attorney, a new city manager, a new mayor, 2 new city council members, and I'm sure I'm forgetting someone. And I've enjoyed being there as kind of a segue between those 2 administrations and welcoming the new people and honoring the people who are no longer serving in our city. I think I bring communication ability. I bring a willingness to listen and just an appreciation and an enjoyment for people.
Okay, is this on? Are we good on YouTube? Thank you. That kind of concludes or rounds up the debate portion of tonight. Hopefully you feel like you had some question answered. We're gonna I'm gonna explain the straw poll, and then we're gonna roll into closing statements. So the straw poll will go as follows. Our KCEA staff is going to, or our leadership, I guess I should say, they're going to hand out the ballots. They're sort of a mock of what the ballot will look like that you'll either get in the mail or go and vote with on election day. And if you could just fill it out however you would vote, I guess, if today was election day. And then we have these ballot boxes here. They're official from the clerk's office. We'll show you that they're empty so that there's no cheating going on. Everybody knows. Nobody can claim anything later. We're not trying to cheat. So these will be located. I think one will be over there, and then maybe one will be back there. I think so. If you want to fill that out, and then any time during the closing statements you want to take your ballot and put it in one of these ballot boxes, and then our KCEA leadership, with the help from some very seasoned ballot counters from our clerk's office, will count those right here in the room, and then we'll try to get you the results of that as soon as possible, and they'll also be published. If you have to take off, we'll publish them online.
Sorry, little miscommunication. I thought he was running closing statements. All right, so we are going to give you each 2 minutes for closing statement. There will not be any response or any rebuttal to any of that. I'm going to start, whose turn is it, ladies? Thank you.
Is it
We'll start with Ms. Johnson, and then we'll go to Ms. Myers, and then we'll go to Mr. Gant.
Perfect. I appreciate this opportunity. Wendy, you've done a wonderful job. I know you were probably more nervous than us candidates, but it's ran very smoothly, so thank you. And thank you to you guys for being present. It shows me that people do care about this election. They're here to learn and be informed, educated voters. Again, I just kind of want to reiterate my background. I've worked for Kane County for 8 years. Over 18,000 hours that I've been able to have a front row seat at all the different iterations of the commissions. I've been able to see how they can effectively do things and sometimes some of their mistakes. And I basically just want to keep things moving forward. I realize that we have some tough battles ahead, some that we know about and some that probably we're unaware of at this time. And I feel like I've got the know-how, the relationships, and the experience to apply in a broader way for Kane County. And really, I continue to think of the first principle of the Constitution, and that really is power to the people. And I do trust you as voters to make an informed decision. And I want you to know I want you to keep that decision personal. I know some candidates put you on the spot and ask you to vote for them and get your commitment. I am not that kind of person. I will just say I would appreciate your vote and trust you to do your best job. And so I hope you'd have confidence in me with my proven track record with Kane County, and I would ask you to write me in for Commission Seat B. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ms. Myers?
Oh, my name is Celeste Myers, in case anyone forgot that part. And it's kind of funny, today, multiple people came up to me and said, "Are you going to that? It's going to be a lion's den. It's at the building controlled by one of your opponents. It's put on by the Kane County Employee Association, of which one of your opponents is a member of. And there's going to be a mock election, but how do we know it's going to be counted properly?" I said, I will work with anyone. I have been working with anyone. I love working with people, and I mean that. And I think whatever happens moving forward, if I'm the commissioner for the employees and for the rest of the county, we're going to get through this together. As I said before, it's going to be okay. And I look forward to that job. I feel so honored to have been able to serve our communities for so long, for the past 6+ years as a volunteer or as an elected official. You mean the world to me. I am worked on bipartisan issues. I've worked on Republican issues. I'm not, I will never turn anyone away. If they call me or contact me, I will talk with anyone, even if they're rude to me, say rude things, disagree with me, try to cancel me, anything like that. I'm here for it. I'm here for you. Thank you for putting me on the ballot. I appreciate you, and I appreciate your vote in November.
Thank you. Mr. Gant?
It is an honor to be up here and have this opportunity. I really have enjoyed what I've done. It's been a great night. These two women are capable, smart, intelligent, wonderful leaders. We would all do a great job. It's nice to be here with a reasonable dialogue. It's kind of a weird world we're living in. People that won't even talk to you, that you've got to try to have a meeting of the minds on policy, or let's discuss this stuff. You can't get anywhere if you won't talk about it, and that seems to kind of be the MO this year. Let's talk. We're not out to block people or cancel people or delete people. That is such a bunch of crap. We got to talk. We got to get along. We got to work together, especially in politics. And we've got such a great group. We got a great county. Talking about having people's backs, I got to have Commissioner Heaton's back in this thing. We welcome new people, but this is my first term. Wade's in his second year. I mean, we've got to have some continuity. We got a lot of things going on, and we're going to all get up to speed. And anybody here is capable of doing it. But what a silly time to change that. I mean, I'm the veteran guy with going on 4 years, so we've got relationships that I could go on and on and on that we need to keep alive, keep going, use the experience we've got, play as a team, and get this thing done. We got a lot on our hands. Appreciate your vote. Thanks.
Thank you.
With that, that kind of concludes our candidate portion. I think all the candidates are planning on kind of hanging around if you have more questions for them. We're gonna have about another 2 minutes here to finish collecting the ballots. So if you still have your ballot, get it in quick, and then we'll start counting in 2 minutes. And if you'd like to hang around, we'll announce what the count says after that. Thanks again for coming.
Grab that mic. A big round of applause for the Kane County employees for putting this whole thing together. They spent all day getting this all set up. Yeah. It was very well done, wasn't it? Just all new, huh? Isn't that cool? You've got our Space Force. Or you got them all. Thanks. Yeah, right. That one I'm behind. Oh, it's nice.